Our guest today is Lee Cockerell, who is the former Executive Vice President of Operations at Walt Disney World Resorts. Lee comes to this conversation with so much wisdom, just the simplicity of how to build your character and level up as a leader. When we flourish and lean into growth individually, it helps the people around us on our teams and in the companies that we are involved in, helps them to flourish as well. So here's Lee. Let's lean in and listen to how we can grow as leaders on our journey. Lee, welcome to Listen Loudly. We're so excited to have you. And I know that our listeners are going to glean so much from your perspective on leadership, but more specifically for them to be inspired of how they can do more than they might think that they are capable of. So thank you for being with us. And first of all, we want to understand a bit about what you're doing in this chapter of your life. I know that you've had a big career and we're going to dive into some of that, but tell us what fuels your passion. Why do you wake up every day at this point?
Well, I've been retired for 18 years. So I had to have something to do so my wife wouldn't leave me. And so I started developing a lot of consulting, but based around training and around leadership, management, culture issue, which the culture drives most of good results in companies if it's right, and customer service. And I worked for Hilton for 8 years and places like the Waldorf Astoria, Chicago, all over the great hotels. And then I worked for Marriott for 17 years. I became the vice president of food and beverage, so I had great experience opening hotels. And then Disney recruited me to go to France and open Disneyland Paris, and I did that. And so at the end of the day, I thought I must know a lot because I've had so much exposure and experience that I'd like to pass that on to other people. So I enjoy it. And frankly, the people ask me, why do you do this, Lee? And I said, because people clap and I'm insecure. So I like when they clap. When I play golf, nobody claps. I get a lot of satisfaction out of getting notes every day. People saying, thank you for that. Thanks for having that talk with me. Thanks for showing me how to do that. I didn't know. Also, the encouragement everybody needs these days. I mean, literally, the anxiety in the world is at an all-time high, I believe. That people are worried about so much and so much going on and coming at them that they just don't know how to keep it all together. And so I teach a lot of time management because if you don't have a system for keeping your life under control, it will get out of control pretty fast. I was always disciplined, but I took a time management class in 1980, and it opened my eyes to that there's a way to wake up every morning and decide what you need to do today, tomorrow, what do you need to do this week, what do you need to do for the summer, and starting to think about things in advance. The key was for me is you got to do a lot of things right now that won't pay off for 5, 10, 15 years from now. If you want that job 10 years from now, there's a bunch of stuff you got to do. You got to get more experience, get exposure. You may have to go back to school. You may have to get your MBA. You may have to take courses. You may have to take assignments in locations that you rather wouldn't, but you're going to get that exposure and experience. And I think a lot of people don't realize that what happens is a job opens, they get turned down, and the boss says, well, if you had done these things, you would have been ready and prepared. And I'm telling you, if you don't take control of your life, nobody really cares about you anyway. And I'm serious. Today, if you've got to manage your situation and your knowledge, and you got to manage your relationships, and you got to manage your health. A lot of people sitting around thinking it's just going to happen. It's not going to happen. So I do a lot of that kind of work. I do a lot of conferences. I speak to a lot of students who need to hear this also. It's just become my thing now. So that's what I do. And I'm booked a lot. I have 3 more speeches this week here in Orlando area. One's with a group of veterinarians that are trying to figure out how to not be so stressed out when their patients bring their dogs, and the dogs dies. And then they get the bill of what it costs, $5,000, $3,000, $2,000. And then I'm speaking to a group that handles healthcare call centers for thousands of doctors. They book the appointments. They call you back. The one that answers the phone, because most doctors' offices don't ever answer the phone. They're very successful, so they're here. And then I'm speaking to a travel agent group that is trying to be the best travel agent group because repeat business is the name of the game. If you do a good job, people come back and give you their credit card again. So it's kind of simplistic, Lance, but you got to be great today. Everything's a commodity. If you're not great, people go somewhere else. It's easy to find somebody else to buy anything you want, especially at Amazon and places like that. You don't have to go anywhere. I try to bring in an awareness that things I've learned over all those years at some really great companies. And I do business in like 45 countries. I've been all over the world. Appreciate people no matter where they're from. I've gotten over that American anxiety. This is something that exposure to me is the name of the game. The more you're exposed, the more you know, and the more you're comfortable with yourself. And so many people live in isolated places. They don't get out of their village, as I like to say. So that's kind of my thing, and I'm getting better at it because I keep
thank you.
thinking about it. I think about the young people. They're different than they were when I was coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for showing up. You could obviously choose to spend your time differently in this season, and people like me, people like Prentice, we look to voices like you who've had years of experience and are able to synthesize it, boil it down, see the patterns, and package it up in a way that helps us grow. One of my favorite quotes that you have is that knowledge is the yeast that makes every leader rise. So something I'd love to understand from you as you're sharing knowledge to help leaders rise, regardless of what, as you mentioned, different industries, but whatever role you're in within a company, marketing, operations, or any area of business, what is the most important piece of knowledge that you want to share with our listeners to unlock growth in their life? What's one thing you'd have to boil it down to?
I would tell everybody, if you have a good attitude and you're reliable, you're going to be very successful in life, because the other stuff you'll learn along the way with seminars, going to school, listening to podcasts. And this is the problem. Most people are not reliable. And just think about everybody you know. Are they going to do it? They get back to you. They don't get back to you. They don't call you back. They say they're going to get it done. They don't get it done. And I'm telling you, that's the reason I'm successful. I don't have a college degree. I dropped out of college because I was too dumb. I tell people I wrote 6 books and I still don't know where the commas go. But one day I'm going to use a semicolon and know why. It's an attitude. When you have a good attitude, people give you a big break. And when you're reliable, you grow on them. And they just, everything they give you. You know, Barack Obama said the other day, they asked him, what kind of people do you like to hire? He said, I like to hire people who just get it done. You know, there's a lesson there. Get it done. I don't know if they do it. I don't know if they hire somebody to do it.
Right.
I don't know how they get it done. But it doesn't bother me. They get it done. I think, we know those people, and most people are disorganized. They're not keeping their life under control. You got a lot of parts in your life to control, including your health.
Lee, I appreciate what you're saying. Interesting timing to hear this. I was re-listening to The 4 Agreements this morning, just the audio. It's a book called The 4 Agreements, but the audio version. And the first agreement is to be impeccable with your word, meaning, with integrity and do what you say you're going to do, right? I mean, that's what you're hitting on right now. It seems so simple, but
trust.
It's so critical.
If you don't get back to me, you don't call, you don't get it, you're working on time, I don't trust you. And just think, that one simple concept, the knowledge you can learn no problem, and you're going to get a lot more support from everybody around you when you're that person that just is. People ask me, how can you be successful in life? I said, be better than everybody else. Just be better attitude, get your work done. As my mother said, get that look off your face and just do it. You don't have to be happy to work at Disney. You got to act happy for 8 hours. That's why we're successful. It's on a show. All of us are. We know how, think about all the people you know. Grumpy ones, the ones you don't want to run into, the ones that some of them are your family. Who you are really matters as you're projecting every day. Who you are. People are glad to see you when you walk in the room.
Lee, as you've worked with leaders and trying to help them level up, like what would you say are some of those leadership qualities where, there's so many, and it probably depends on what you're lacking, right? Where you can grow into. But what would be some of the themes that you feel like have really helped unlock people's success in leadership that you worked with them on?
Yeah, well, so many people have self-confidence problem for who knows what reason. The environment they were raised in, their parents, God knows what. But I think if you get into an environment where people think about, my responsibility, if you work for me, is to make you better. My responsibility is to train you, to develop you. And I always talk about the difference between training and development. Training is when we get in a room and 50 people and we learn how to do something. Development's when you and I go in my office and have a heart-to-heart talk about your attitude, not getting your work done on time. That's the mother concept. That's what mothers do. They do it because they care about you and they love you. And that's what most leaders don't do. They don't want to do the hard things. Till you start doing the hard things, life will get harder. They will have hard conversations with people about their performance, hard conversations about whatever the issues are, because you want them to get better. And I would say 99% of people don't want to do that, you know?
Lee, coming into this call, I just got off the phone with someone and had a hard conversation. And it was part of it's like, it's difficult. It's no fun. Who wants to do that? It'd be really easy to just not do that. But on the other side of it, it's like you feel so much better for having done it, and the learnings
First,
that come
it's a
from
responsibility.
it. So it's you're right.
It's responsibility. You're being irresponsible if you don't do it. I tell people now, if you can't have hard conversations and make hard decisions, number one, don't have children. And number two, don't become a leader, because every problem you have every day will be a person. That's it. A person. It won't be anything else. Something didn't get done. That was a person. The inventory is short. Somebody screwed up. Every single thing. And by the way, most of your problems are your fault anyway. So that's, we all want to blame the government and everybody else.
Hold up the mirror.
Most of your problems are your fault.
Yeah.
That's what I think. So I don't.
Great.
If I got a problem, I got to figure out somebody to help me get over it. And it may mean training. It may mean taking another job. I don't know. But there's a solution. I tell people today, if you're unhappy, you know why. And the reason you're unhappy is because you know why, and you're not doing anything about it. You might need a new husband. You might need to tell your mother-in-law to quit calling. You may need to take better care of your health. You may need to deal with the parents. It's not hard to figure out why you're unhappy. The problem is doing something about it, because that's hard. But you're going to have regrets if you don't. You got to do it.
Can you tell us a little bit more? I know some of your story, and these principles, what I love about what you're sharing is you would almost expect a bit more of a develop these skills, go to this school, or a really like practical answer that is something you can check off. But what you're talking about is character development. That is the hard work, isn't it? And actually something that is talked about in some instances, but is your whole message really to take ownership of the things that you can control, which is yourself, your own development. Tell me a little bit about your story and where these principles became kind of milestones along the way. You had different leaders that brought you along. You didn't grow up in a home that taught you a lot of these things. So tell us a little bit. It would just be great context for us to have in light of even now what you've shared.
Yeah, well, I started at the Washington Hilton as a banquet waiter. Everybody in the organization was German except me. And they were here on green cards to open that hotel. And I'd never been in a hotel. I knew nothing. But somehow they gave me the job and I got it. I will say again, first I was terrified, so I had a good attitude. I didn't want to annoy anybody and show them how much I didn't know. So I had one fellow who took me by the hand and showed me taught me how to do the business. And I became the best little waiter they ever had. Next thing I know, I got an opportunity to get a clerk's job in the accounting department and start to learn about the finance. And they got me. And again, it paid nothing, but I took it anyway. And the only reason I got the job was because nobody else would take it, because it paid $80 a week. I did that and worked as a waiter at night. And then I got promoted again to Chicago. And then I got promoted to the Waldorf Astoria in New York, and there to director of food and beverage in Los Angeles. And then I got annoyed and wasn't happy the way I was being treated by my boss at LA Hilton, and I left. Ended up with Marriott for 17 years, and by then I had become an expert in the food business because I'd been a waiter, a cook. I'd done all those jobs. I've been in accounting, so I knew the finance side. And next thing you know, I was made vice president of food and beverage planning for Marriott worldwide. Nobody talked to me about did I have a degree. They just knew Lee gets things done. So that went well, and I did that for years. And then I got recruited by Disney in 1990 to go to France and open all the restaurants. Again, my expertise got me in. And then after there, I got promoted to be in charge of the hotel division, and then later on come back and be in charge of Walt Disney World. Everybody who reported to me, I had engineers, security, transportation, all of those. I don't know anything about those things, but I got great people, and I made it a great place for them to work, and I gave them authority, and they made decisions, and they called me if they were having trouble, and we got in a room together and listened and made it better. And, I didn't really want to be the boss. I just want to work on, I want to be part of that team. Now, I do have one more vote than everybody else, but at the end of the day, 9/11, we lost 35% of our business that day. We got in a room. I was quiet because I needed a lot of smart people to tell us what we should do. And we ended up taking $400 million out of our cost base and didn't lay anybody off. And that was because we had the right people in the room that were good leaders and they were good technicians. They had technical competence.
Yeah.
They knew what we could do.
Yeah.
And so I think, you don't have to know what everybody does. You got to make sure I tell you, the number one thing are the right people. There's nothing more important in your business. Nothing. And getting rid of the wrong people. Those are the two hard things. You do those, everything starts to work out just fine.
So, and specifically too, I want to hear from your evolution as a kid and the environment that you grew up in. When was the first moment that somebody held up a mirror to you and said, "Hey, Lee, this needs to fix, like you need to fix this character issue area for you to continue to progress as a leader"?
Yeah, well, I grew up in Oklahoma on a dairy farm. We were poor as church mice, so we didn't even have indoor plumbing. We had the old outhouse, and my grandkids have a hard time believing that. They think I'm joking. We were kids. We didn't know any difference. I milked a cow every morning in third grade by hand, sold the milk. That was my development program, even though we had electric milkers for the rest of the cattle. My mother was married 5 times. She was never happy. She grew up in a dysfunctional home. But when I think we had dinner every night and went to school and all of that, and I had my grandmother. That's the other thing. There's got to be somebody around you to give you that comfort and encouragement. And that was my grandmother. I lived with her when I was born for a few years, and she used to tell me every day I was special and I was the best and I could do anything, and I believed her. But I was never a good student. They tried to hold me back in third grade, and my parents raised hell because it was too embarrassing for the community, so I got promoted. That's why I don't know where the karmas go. I went in the Army after that. That was a great experience about discipline. 1964, I joined in the Army, went to Fort Polk, Louisiana. When I got out, I went to Washington, D.C. And so those experiences, getting out of your comfort zone of your little town in Oklahoma to the Army and then to Washington. Washington is an eye-opener, because if you don't like people, everybody there's from somewhere else. Everybody, every religion. I mean, it was the best thing I ever did. And we made sure it happened with our son.
Yeah.
And our grandkids are all successful. They're in Boston and Manhattan and France. And because you become like the culture and environment you spend your time in. And you got to get into the right culture.
Well, I'm just remembering you sharing about an incident when you entered the workforce after these experiences that you just listed. And one of your bosses said, "Lee, if you continue to think everybody else is the problem and that it's not you, that you're going to stunt your growth," essentially. Like, he held up that mirror to you. Tell me a little bit more about that moment.
Well, the first boss I had in the Waldorf Astoria in New York, here's an Oklahoma kid coming to the most famous hotel in the world, farm boy. He sat me down the day I got there and said, "Lee, you're at the Waldorf now. Let me tell you how we work here. You don't wear a brown suit or brown shoes after 5 o'clock. You have a tuxedo on if there's a formal event in the hotel. You don't ever smoke a cigarette in public in front of somebody if you smoke. You don't drink out of a bottle. That's why they invented glasses." And then he took me to different restaurants every Monday night for 3 years and the best places in New York, and taught me and showed me. He made me eat my first oyster. I mean, I looked at that. I said, no. And, and my first lamb. And so he was great at developing me and giving me the knowledge, and my confidence grew. And then I had a boss at Marriott who I was very defensive. I'm a very defensive person, and now I know how to cover it up. Called me in one day. It was never my fault. I was all, no, yeah. And he said, "Lee, let me tell you something. The world does not revolve around Lee Cockerell. We're just talking about a business issue. You don't have to be defensive. We're talking about taking care of business." Every time I got defensive, he called me on it, and I got over it. And I had that insecurity, I'm sure, because I didn't have a college degree, and I grew up in a dysfunctional family, going to New York City, which is very intimidating. And then after that, and I would say each time I got a promotion or more responsibility, my confidence got bigger. Slowly but surely, I guess I worked out of that who I was to who I am. And that's what happens. That's why I tell people, you don't have to be who you are. You can be who you. It's like exercise. If you want to be in shape, you can. If you want to know more, you can. If you want to be more, you can. If you always sit back and think you can't, you're probably in the wrong environment and culture where people are not encouraging and showing you and helping you and holding your hand. And that's important. We all need appreciation, recognition.
So great. Yeah. And just personally, I'm sitting here reflecting on the impact that each of us have as leaders on the people around us. And you never know what their story is. what experiences they had leading up to that moment that you're encountering them in a professional setting. And your boss that you mentioned holding up that mirror to you, he may not have known your story or the reasons why you were leading with that insecurity or feeling like you were struggling to take ownership of something. So just good reminder to all of us to kind of see through that lens, understand whether you know exactly what the influences are, but people are all coming with their own experiences to that moment that you have an impact to influence for good and
you will never
become
know.
a milestone on their journey. You'll never know. Well, Lee, let's shift gears a bit and zoom in on the topic of marketing, knowing that our audience here is focused on marketing every day. And I love your perspective about the thread of trust and the way that marketing, as it passes hands to operations, the role that trust plays in that. Can we zoom in and let me just hear from you a bit about what we need to know about the role of trust as it relates to marketing and operations and the different pieces of a business?
I think you and I and everybody already knows you go where you trust. I mean, how many restaurants do you not go back to? How many businesses? Even now with the internet, how often are you disappointed about some big claim? This is going to be great. And the small print, next thing you know, you sign up and then they start charging you more next month and you have trouble getting anybody on the phone. And it's really how we make all our decisions.
Yeah.
You know, I tell people if I'm driving down the highway, I need a room and I see a Marriott sign, I trust it's going to be pretty good. There's other brands that I see, maybe not. Or it's a lot of people around here say, if I see a Chick-fil-A, there's where I'm going to get my sandwich because I know it's going to be this right sandwich no matter what exit you stop in the U.S. on any highway. Just think about it. I asked people the other day, what brands do you trust? And they start. One said Delta Airlines, one said Costco, Publix restaurants here, and you know which ones. Your doctor. Do you trust your doctor? Yeah. If you don't, you get another doctor. And when we get referrals, that's where a lot of you move to a new town, you ask, could you recommend a doctor to me? Could you recommend somebody you trust? You don't just go down the phone book. And I think the trust thing is something we talk about a lot, but we don't think deeply enough about it, how impactful it is. So if you're going to market something, you got to make sure you might get one shot. As we said at Disney, marketing brings them in once, and operations brings them back. We fulfill. We make sure, as we say, we'll make that marketing come true. Mostly marketing, when you watch TV at night, usually you go like, nah, I don't think so. I mean, if there's somebody... In marketing is, you know, they're trying to sell you something. You got to trust. It's got to be trust. And the trust is when you come into contact with that product that they've been marketing. It either works or it doesn't work. The restaurant's either great or it's not great. The food's either good or it's not good. The mechanic either fixes your car or doesn't. It's every part of our life.
Lee, question for you. So Hilton, Marriott, Disney, these are all companies that have been around a long time. I mean, creating a consistent product for a long time. We're talking over 100 years, right? So in each case, what are some of those like through lines, some of those similarities you've seen at each of those organizations that provided the magic, provided the winning factor?
The founders.
What is it? What
founded them? You know, Conrad Hilton, Bill Marriott, Walt Disney. I mean, they had deep moral, deep way they treated people. They are fanatics about training, selecting right people, giving people authority to make decisions. They were three amazing people, and they all three knew success was based around people. You know, if you're going to have a hotel, you need a good chef. You need a good front desk manager. You need a good housekeepers that clean the rooms so they're clean. You know, all three of those people said if you keep it clean and keep it friendly, everything will be fine. You know, when you think about it, end of the day, keep it clean and keep it friendly. And when I'm dead, it'll be just fine. I think we forget some of the simplicity of life. You can tell me anything you want in marketing, but at the end of the day, my little brain is going to evaluate you on what really happens. And you can't be too slick.
Yeah, it's true. It's a good perspective.
Yeah.
Well, the last question I want to ask you is, what is the secret to sparking magic in teams of all sizes?
I would say three things. You know, at Disney, I worked on three things. Number one, hiring the right people, because that makes the culture. Training and developing. And last, making sure that everybody matters, and make sure that everybody matters by telling them and appreciating them and showing them and encouraging them. That's really it. Good people, you know, hire them right, train them right, and treat them right. I mean, if you do those three things, everybody's going to want to work there. The line will be long, turnover will go down, customer service will be better. Great, because if the employees are happy, the customers are going to be happier.
Right.
Again, I just say that we make it. It's not a technology thing. In fact, that may make it worse. We get so wrapped up and we forgot it's eyeball to eyeball. The best interactions we have every day are with people, not with technology. When I tell my wife,
and to me, that magic is human connection, isn't it?
And by the way, I get a lot of feedback from my wife over the years. I've been married 65 years, and she's really helped me get more focused on be careful what you say and do, because everybody's watching you and judging you.
Yeah.
And that's something we could all be careful.
Yeah, you share about that in your book.
Yeah, I mean, it's really at the end of the day.
About the role that your wife played.
Yeah.
I remember a couple years ago, I read your book when I was in New York and just growing in my career while raising young kids at home. And I remember your story resonating with me so much. One aspect you shared, the role your wife played in the development of your career and your character along the way. And then also manage like a mother was a phrase of yours that really stuck out to me as a mother, but just taking those qualities and applying them to a business setting and using them for my advantage and growth is just incredible. So your story is one that inspires me. Yeah, mothers know. They know a lot of things. Right.
If you want a good operation, hire women.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, they are on it. They worry about today, have one goal in life, keep their kids safe, and to make them be able to go out into the world and be successful with confidence. I mean, that's it. And if you do that at work, you know, my daughter-in-law just wrote a book, Manage Like a Mother. It was published recently, and it's coming out of Brazil next. And I was going to write that book. And then I said, you know, how could I write a book, Manage Like a Mother? Mothers have deeper senses and feelings than a man could. I mean, they're your kids. I said, anytime you don't know what to do, you got a leadership dilemma, you're not sure of the decision, call your mom. She'll tell you. No problem.
Good advice.
True. Well, good advice. Free consulting. Well, Lee, thank you so much for this wisdom that you've shared. It is so grounding, and the magic is the simplicity in a lot of ways. And what I've taken away from this conversation is a reminder about the human connection being the magic and being that simplicity to come right back down to those principles. And character growth is the work, isn't it? In all of us, that we've never arrived. There's always more that we can do to continue to level up our leadership by chiseling away at that statue in that block of stone for our personal growth. And then the people around us rise as well, don't they? When we commit to our own growth, the teams around us and the companies around us grow. So thank you for being with us and just for showing up in this chapter of your life where you could be on the golf course every day, just chilling. Thank you for imparting into us.
And I was going to say to you before we hang up, how important is it for you, for your kids to be successful?
Yeah.
You think about that every day.
Absolutely.
And what you think about is what you're going to get.
Right.
So
it's what
you
drives.
Guys take care. That was fun.
Thank you, Lee.
Thanks,
Thank
Lee.
you so much.